A dangerous experiment, a shocking marriage, and the reappearance of an old enemy. The battle against the evil empire rages on as heroic men, women, and aliens of the Rebel Alliance continue their struggle to end the era of darkness. But the ultimate defeat of the Imperial forces could come from within the Empire itself. The Imperial Grand Moffs are in revolt against the prophets of the dark side. As the Alliance struggles with its latest weapon, Project Decoy, Princess Leia is kidnapped by an old enemy, then menaced by the surprise appearance of another evil foe, one obsessed with turning Leia to the dark side and making her the Queen of the Empire.
The Padawan library and this week we're not in the library, we're in the Moff ship.
we're holding a Mofference.
A Mofference. Gotta hammer that.
Of course we are all dark Moffs here on this Moff ship. I am Moff Levi Paratic. With me, dark greetings to Moff Tim May.
Dark greetings, Grand Moff. Thank you very much, Grand Moff Tim May.
and
our guest this week is, as
Supreme
usual,
Prophet
Dan May.
Dan May, dark greetings, Supreme Prophet.
Dark greetings.
So,
all right.
Continuing the classic Jedi Prince tradition, Dan's going to be here. And this is the second to last Jedi Prince book. We'll get into the book itself.
And I want to mention before we begin, though, before we start the Mofference, that Moff Doug Hansen, is that it? Is that his name?
What?
No. Yes. Moff Dun Hansen.
Oh,
the
Dun
Blaster
Hansen.
Earring guy.
Dunhausen,
Yeah, he's going to be taking notes for this meeting, guys. So he'll be
secretary. Record the minutes.
Yes.
They got to review the minutes from the previous Mofference at the beginning.
This will make sense in time.
All right. So I want to welcome you, Dan.
Thank you.
Back to the show. It's been a while. It is season 3. You're our most frequent guest, I'm sure. I don't think we have that officially, but wait a minute. Okay, so this is your 5th. Oh, you already entered the 5 Timers Club. Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say because this is the 5th.
Right, but I was on that Galaxy of Fear one, the one with Boba Fett.
And you were on the episode 1 Spectacular, so never mind.
Yep.
And you'll be on another book, I think, before we wrap up the series. I want to try to get you on something that maybe is any good, or at least like a different vibe.
A different type of bad, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, nothing gets quite this like this.
No, well,
there's no other book.
I mean, these are legendarily bad books. They're like amongst the fan base. Like if you say Jedi Prince, like anybody who's deep enough into this shit knows what you're talking about, and immediately starts to laugh or wrinkle up their nose or what have you.
Well, Zorba the Hutt, in my opinion, has entered the pulp culture zeitgeist. Everybody knows that Zorba is Jabba's dad. Come on. So.
That's true. He's referenced constantly. Anyway, because he's been referenced twice by another popular podcast that's not Star Wars related.
Oh, really? What? Really?
Doughboys, I'm pretty sure, right?
They're talking about Zorba the Hutt?
Nick Weiger, the co-host of the very popular show Doughboys, has referenced Zorba the Hutt at least twice.
That's amazing.
Very funny. Anyway, so this week, though, so we're doing Queen of the Empire. That'll be the featured review. As is now the custom for season 3, we are also going to talk about another piece of culture that has nothing to do with the book, other than maybe sharing a word of the title. Mm-hmm. And so we decided last week that we're going to watch The African Queen, the I believe it's 1952.
It's 51.
51 film by John Huston, starring Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. A classic adventure movie.
A very classic adventure movie. A wholesomely classic adventure movie.
And this is one that I thought maybe I had seen when I was a kid on TV, but it was not familiar to me, other than like the broad, like iconic look of the movie. Like I knew like him dragging the boat and stuff like that just from absorbing culture, but this was I wanted to actually ask you, Levi, because I remember I vaguely recall that how many John Huston movies have you seen? Because I remember.
I think I've only seen Treasure on the Sierra Madre, so that's the only one I've seen.
Which is that's a fantastic movie. I think that that's among his best movies. But I love this is one of the big ones I had not seen, and I was very excited to visit it. And one thing I really like about him, as far as he's among my favorites of the classic Hollywood directors, and the reason is because I think his movies feel very of their time, but they have an extremely advanced sensibility. Not stylistically, really. They're very kind of classical, but it's there's just it's hard for me to explain. I don't. But yeah.
Well, this movie here is actually pretty interesting because this is one of this is a big studio movie. Well, actually, it wasn't a studio movie. It was a largely independent movie because
shot in the Congo, I believe, right?
Shot in the Congo. Shot on location, being just wild to do at that time, And it was Sam Spiegel, who sometimes would go by SP Eagle in his early days. He was mostly a big money man, but he met John Huston at a party, and they drank it up a little bit. And he asked John, he's like, "What would you want to make?" And he was just like, "The African Queen." So they pulled it all together,
which makes sense because John Huston, when he was in the war, he shot. I believe he wound up in World War II. I mean, I believe he wound up shooting. The final film he made, for the U.S. For the military, I believe, was a documentary about the African front. So I wonder if he just spent some time there and was like, I need to make a movie here because it's...
Well, infamously, the story is that John Huston really wanted to shoot an elephant. Oh. And that's what he really wanted to shoot an elephant, and every morning before filming he would go out hunting. And and apparently Katharine Hepburn, she was just she found this appalling. Sure. So he's just come out with me one morning. So she did, and they got charged by elephants. Okay, they came across some elephants. They heard an elephant's stomach growling, and they knew they were close. And then they turned around. They got stampeded. They had to run out of there with their lives. He was shocked because he was just "Oh my God, I nearly just killed the lead actress of my movie." And then apparently Katharine Hepburn became quite the hunter after that. They would go hunting afterwards too. So
John Huston, man. Quite a yeah.
That was the era of big game hunting amongst rich folks. It was real popular thing to do.
But yeah,
they're saying they didn't say he ever got one, so there's no confirmed reports that he ever actually got one. But he was.
Yeah, I mean he's a maniac. He's one of these old Hollywood maniacs for sure.
I know too much about this because Tim. You sent me next day Amazon a copy of this movie. You said it was for my birthday, so thank you very much. Yes. Happy birthday to me. But it had an hour-long documentary on it as well. This is how I know all these quick facts here. But this documentary had a very funny title. Embracing Chaos, the making of the African Queen.
Which I'm not shocked they're shooting on location on a river.
Right.
For the vast majority of the runtime, and it's
shooting on water, anybody who's seen any Jaws documentary knows that's impossible, basically.
And there's such a story about how this was filmed, but I want to say, like, one of the things that blows me away, there's one shot that I find stunning, and you could just shows that they were actually there, you see crocodiles, like Bogart mentions that there are crocodiles, and he's like, yeah, they're looking for their lunch, and then he walks out of frame, and behind him on this, like, the land are a whole bunch of crocodiles, and they come jumping off the ledge into the water, and it's like they are real crocodiles. Like,
that's like one of my favorite moments in the whole movie. So good.
Yeah, that scene, that was iconic.
So if our listeners aren't familiar with the movie, it's a pretty basic premise. Katharine Hepburn plays a missionary who's in some part of Africa, where I'm just gonna assume it's supposed to be the Congo, and her brother runs the missionary. He winds up getting murdered by German troops.
It seems like he doesn't
get murdered. The Germans murder the entire village that they're stationed in.
Right, they burn the place down. They take them all hostage.
That's
for possible troops, that kind of thing. So
and then he dies seemingly of Padme disease, broken heart, or he kills himself or something. And so then the Bogart character is like this messenger who delivers mail up and down the river in his boat, the African Queen. And so he returns to their village shortly after this happens, and he agrees to take her down the river, and she wants to attack, because they just found out that the war is happening, because they've been enmeshed in this mission for
10 years.
10 years, right? So they just found out that England's at war, and so she wants to attack the German ship, and but they have to travel these precarious waters,
rapids, waterfalls, reeds. Yeah. They have to go past a German fort to get to the part. It's so wild.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of fun. They have to jerry rig torpedoes to fire the boat, and that is.
It is great.
Yeah, it's so much just crazy high adventure stuff.
And not only was this super crazy high adventure, it was pretty technical, because they shot it in Technicolor, which was a huge ordeal because the Technicolor cameras were really big.
It's like if you're shooting these days in stereoscopic 3D or something.
Right.
Where you gotta have two cameras. It's basically that size we're talking.
Because you have to have 3 reels of film in the thing going simultaneously that each recorded in one color. So to do this, they have a replica of the African Queen. Well, they have the actual African Queen. Then they have a replica of it that they can take into parts. So they build a large pontoon, and they set the parts in the corner of the pontoon, and then that way you have room for your camera, your crew, your lights. And then they had another large pontoon attached to that boat, which had all the miscellaneous crew, like your costumers, your makeup, or actors who weren't being used at that moment. And then on that, Katharine Hepburn had a clause in her contract that said she had to have her own toilet. So there was a small tent on a pontoon that was at the very end of this pontoon that had her own private toilet in it. So that was classic. And they're just going down the river. They are literally in Africa going down the river.
It's it's basically it's basically a fun version of Heart of Darkness. That they even shot it. They even shot it in the Congo, which is where the book Heart of Darkness takes place, of course. And I feel like, and it's a romance. It's a romance, and the other thing that should be talked about is, of course, Bogart and Hepburn, movie stars. And I'm not one of these people that's there are no movie stars anymore right now because of franchises. But when you see somebody who's just got something on screen, And Bogart's probably my favorite movie star ever. Like on it, like if I'm being real, like I love watching him. I love everything he does. Basically, every like possible gesture, and like the way he delivers any line. Like it's always fast. It's always interesting. There is never anything uninteresting happening with him in any movie, frankly. But him and Houston work so well together because Treasure of the Sierra Madre and Maltese Falcon, even like lesser movies like Key Largo or something. But he is just fascinating. And him and Hepburn, like, who is obviously also one of the great movie stars and has similar qualities in a lot of ways, but like they have like there's this classic combative relationship that's very popular in adventure films of this era, and actually. To tie it into Star Wars,
very Han and Leia.
The Empire Strikes Back is modeled on movies like this. That's really what definitely. It is. So it's like, I think, for some of our listeners who might be big Star Wars fans, but maybe not, like, maybe they like just kind of like skip 15 seconds anytime we're talking about a movie or something. They're not. Then, like, if they're still listening, just, if you like the original Star Wars trilogy, you will like movies like this. Like, this is where, like, I know that none of us need to be told this, but I do feel like maybe there's somebody in our audience.
I'm kind of curious about this. I have been for a long time. Like, because we'll always talk about, like, when, I'll talk with Tim, between episodes. And, I'll joke like, oh, well, yeah, I'm sure your listeners loved hearing, 20 minutes of Vampire Diaries talk or whatever. But, like, I kind of suspect, if, your consistent listeners, they must not mind, or else would they still be listening to the show? I'm gonna commandeer your guys' social media enterprise and tell your listeners to give some feedback about how they feel about non-Star Wars talk on the show. I mean, if they don't like it, oh well.
I mean, listen, the show is our show. Right? And it's coming to an end this year.
So
nothing is changing.
Hang on. I want to confuse the people who skip the 15 second. So, Star Wars.
Jedi Prince?
Star Wars.
Lando Calrissian.
Oh.
Boba Fett.
Hologram Fun World?
Star Wars. Galaxy of Fear. Hologram Fun World. Star Wars.
Alright, so... I know, like, that's maybe a facile point, I'm sure there's the people who do like these opening segments probably are like, of course I like other movies besides Star Wars, Tim, but like...
In the words of Samuel L. Jackson, other fucking people make movies.
Oh, classic. Classic.
Too true. Too true.
But it's not even an insult. There are people that, like, maybe they aren't into movies really that much, and, like, but they do like Star Wars. And I'm just saying, if you like Star Wars, there's a whole world of fun movies that you will enjoy waiting for you from all different parts of the world, from all different eras. And I'm just saying, like, The African Queen, good place to start.
Great movie.
Great place to start. It is a great movie. And some other fun facts I want to point out that... Bogart, he was asked by Sam Spiegel, because Houston was just, Sam Spiegel was just like, well, who do you want in the movie? He goes, Bogart. So Sam Spiegel goes to Bogart, and, Bogart's like, I'm in the movie. And then he's like, well, who do you want to star opposite you? And he goes, well, I've never worked with Katharine Hepburn before. What about her? So she was just like, of course I'll do it.
Of course she'll do it.
She is so funny in this movie.
She is always so funny.
Yeah.
I really have grown to appreciate her recently. I recently saw Holiday over Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Holiday, her and Cary Grant movie, a great love story there because there's a whole thing in Holiday where he is going with her sister and her sister.
Oh, that's on the Criterion Channel, right? There's that new Bogart collection.
Oh, well, Cary Grant. I'm
Cary Grant.
Not
Bogart. I meant Cary Grant. Sorry. I saw that I need to check out some
Holiday's great because halfway through the movie you realize Cary Grant and Hepburn should be together, but they can't because of love. It's so wild. And
Can't because of love.
and Philadelphia Story.
Oh,
with
masterpiece.
Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart is a masterpiece.
Yeah,
absolutely,
like one of the
masterpiece.
best movies ever made. Yeah,
I agree.
I love like Tim mentioned, she plays this this missionary. I think they're like I don't know if the denomination is mentioned. I get the impression probably Methodists and
they were. I think they were Methodist.
Okay,
I think
okay.
one of the church said it was a
Oh yeah, you're right. It did, and yeah, like the first time you see her, so like the opening scene, her brother is trying to lead his like Congolese congregation in a hymn. And they're all just kind of muttering along because, like, they don't really know the hymn. You get the impression they don't really care. I mean, I will say, I was a little worried at first, and there are like, I mean, these Congolese characters, they don't really they kind of serve as nothing more than just kind of plot devices. You know, they're kind of just there to get killed by the Germans and provide an impetus to the movie, and that's not great, Bob. But it's also 1951.
It's also 1951, but give them some credit that they actually used natives from the continent and not just actors that they brought in
that
to the studio.
Yeah, it could have been very yikes, but that aside, at the beginning of the movie, we get this hymn sing, and then it cuts to the first time you see Katharine Hepburn in the movie. She's plunking out this hymn on the piano and just singing in the most strident temperance movement 1916 kind of way possible. It's just the funniest thing ever.
Oh, it's fantastic. Hey, this is World War One. Just heads up to everybody if they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's
there's a great story about that organ scene.
Oh, okay.
So when they were filming, everybody on the set was sick all the time because of the water and stuff. Yeah. At one point, they had a filter on the pontoons where they pull the pump and they'd get fresh water out of it from the actual river they were filming in. And at some point, the filter fell off, and nobody knew. So, everybody got sick. But the story is John Huston and Bogart were the only two that didn't get sick because they were drinking whiskey the entire movie. They drank no water the entire movie. And apparently, at that organ scene, at Hepburn's feet, she had a bucket that she was vomiting while they were filming that. So in between takes, she would stop to throw up, and you can see she's really sweaty there.
Oh my God.
And it's because she is violently ill while they're filming that.
When Bogart's character pulls out that bottle of gin. And Katharine Hepburn's reaction is
she's so horrified.
So horrified. And by the way, I mean, listeners might not know this about me. I'm a teetotaler myself, but there's a line in terms of demeanor, and it's just so funny.
It's so good. And the scene where she throws all the bottles out, and it's so funny.
Oh, hilarious.
I guess the thing that I was trying to say earlier about Huston and his movies in general is that I think he is very committed to, and it's a very kind of narrow view of what reality is, but he's very committed to make his movies feel real. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, it takes the form of shooting on location and all that stuff. But even the stuff that in other hands in this period could have been extremely unfortunate, and not just because they could have been blackface or something, but the characters, the African characters are not really characters, but they're also treated to some degree they have their own lives, and
they're not.
And these white people, their concerns are of no concern to them, basically. So which is, I think, even if it's not stressed or underlined the way it might be if the movie was made 20, 30, 40 years later, I do think that shows a level of like commitment to like how real people behave and how real people interact with each other in those sorts of situations. And his movies in general, like I just rewatched The Maltese Falcon like 3 or 4 months ago, which is it might be the best first movie, this side of Citizen Kane. So it's like, but like that movie has a similar thing where that's the most Byzantine bullshit plot, like, it's not even supposed to make sense really, like, but like everything just, and it's very heightened in terms of like the stylized like dialogue and everything, but like everything feels like there's just no despite the fact that these are adventure. Well, that's not an adventure movie; that's a detective movie. But these genre movies that can so often be very romantic, like, and I mean romantic in the like romanticized. Like he's very like committed to like the reality of them, while still making Hollywood movies. You know what I mean? Still making them entertaining. They're not like miserablest, like. You know what I mean?
Well, that's apparently like a quality that he liked in Bogart, was that Bogart is like Bogart can be a very everyman kind of thing, and he does that. He's got a real boyish charm as this Canadian character that he's playing in this movie. But speaking of John Huston, you mentioned Citizen Kane. Shouts to Orson Welles' Other Side of Wind, which stars John Huston.
Of course, John Huston. By the way, one of the only filmmakers of his generation that continued to just work and make big movies until he died, until into the 80s, which is just, notable. Like, I feel like, because, he's also a maniac, so you'd think, like, maybe, like, he would have, drunk himself, out of work eventually, but...
Well, he was such a maniac that... So first off, when they started shooting this movie, there was no ending to this movie yet, because the book ends with them not succeeding in blowing up the German ship. And they kind of figured out early on, watching the chemistry of Bogart and Hepburn, that, like, maybe we should let these guys win, but they had to figure it out. So they brought a writer in by the name of Peter Viertel. And because he was there on location, and after this whole experience happened, he wrote a book called White Hunter Black Heart.
Which Clint Eastwood made a movie out of this book.
Yes.
Yes.
So which is about basically about the make. Yeah. Yep, exactly. I wanted to make sure you knew about that. So.
I mean, he's an absolute maniac. There's legendary stories about him. I mean, he's also, I think, one of the great artists of the studio era, and was able to and the quality I was talking about, I think, allowed him to make an easier transition into the new Hollywood in the 70s than a lot of his peers, because you have movies he made in the 70s like Wise Blood and Fat City and like that, and then even into the 80s, like Prizzi's Honor, which is a really fun movie with Jack Nicholson and his daughter Angelica Houston, who were dating at the time. And he also made like Annie and like the Sylvester Stallone soccer World War II movie Victory. You know what I mean? Like it's like like he made like all kinds of movies and lent them all like some level of like credence, which I appreciate.
But yeah, this was good. I'm glad we watched this flick. Oh, there's like blue screen technology in this movie too, like which is because apparently they say the rumor is 50% of this movie is shot in a studio. I think it's a little less than that, but like all the rapid scene is all like blue screen technology that they're doing there, and it looks great. Like it makes for a really exciting frame.
No, I found that almost none of it looked like effects wise looked dated at all to me. Like. Which is like, and I'm not like, I don't get mad when I see dated, quote unquote dated effects. It doesn't bother me ever. Like almost, like I can't think of a time it's ever really bothered me. But like, it is very impressive for that stuff to hold up 70 years later. Like literally, we're talking about 70 years now.
You know what I thought was crazy was there was that scene where they had to fix the boat. And there's like underwater shots.
Yep,
which that's pretty cutting edge.
Pretty early for that.
Well, they had to do that in the studio. They had to do that in a tank because apparently the water in the river was so toxic that would have like killed them. Like had they done like underwater
also,
stuff, people would have died.
Lighting, I can't imagine like.
Oh,
and
it
not
would be
having
just
it like you have no control and the water's constantly moving. I feel that would be almost impossible.
A story is this movie only had 2 lights. Like they hired this guy as the cinematographer. He was like the leader in like the Technicolor filming,
Right.
and he apparently Technicolor involved a lot of lights. And they're like, "Oh, you won't need any lights because of all the light that we'll have in the jungle." And he's like, "No, I still need lights." So apparently they only had just like 2 lights with them to film
That's
this whole
crazy.
movie. So.
I mean, I'm sure they used other light tools, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they used like whiteboards and that, like
whatever. Mm-hmm.
like you hear about things like modern movies like The Revenant where they talk about how it's all natural light, but you look at the behind the scenes of that movie and they set up these giant like white screens and I'm like,
right,
that's not a light, but you're
people.
still casting like
Yeah.
you're still shaping the light like but whatever. Anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, no, if you haven't seen this movie, it's great. If you've seen maybe Treasure of the Sierra Madre or like some of the other
Key Largo. I've
Key
realized
Largo,
too that I've seen Key Largo,
which that's not as strong. That movie like starts really strong, and then I feel like it's not.
Key Largo, in my opinion, is not him, the actor I'm looking for. Edward G. Robinson is the real
he's awesome
he's the standout in that movie.
Yeah,
so famously there's a poster for Key Largo in Tony Soprano's home theater.
Yes,
so.
there is. Yeah, this is a completely unrelated movie, but a movie that is worth recommending if you if you watch this and you're like, oh, I like these kinds of old school adventure movies. A really good one that has, its issues because of the time it was made, but it's Gunga Din. If you haven't seen Gunga Din, that's a wonderful movie. That's it's George Stevens, right? Yeah, I think it's George Stevens. If I mix that up, I feel bad. But that's like 37, 38, something like that. A delightful film. Do you have it? Yes.
No, I don't.
I thought you were typing.
No. I was making some notes for the little, for Instagram and stuff. But
okay.
Something else too. I may look this up at some point. But Katharine Hepburn wrote a book called "The Making of the African Queen."
Oh
which
boy.
Is her. Well, she is just always delightful to listen to her talk. So there's this great. My in-laws have a copy of the Philadelphia Story on VHS that has a Robert Osborne introduction, which is fantastic. But after the movie, there's this hour-long documentary where it's like it almost feels like she directed it, but it is her talking about her life and all the movies that she made, and she is just fascinating to hear her talk about like her entire story, how she just had like total control over her career. She noticed when it was going downhill and when she needed to change and like what she did to change it and like how she just maintained like this solid career. So
yeah, no,
and there's
you think about it like and listen, obviously like I'm sure the industry was horrible and everything at that time, like it always has been. But you just look at the roles that just like there was always like even a movie like this, if it were made now, like would not feel required. Maybe not right now, but within the last 20 years, would not feel required to give the Katharine Hepburn character really anything that they do in this movie. You know what I mean? Like it would just be like, well, she's the love interest. Let's just have her there. You know what I mean? Like not that like Bogart's the protagonist for sure. Like he's the guy driving a lot of the action, but she's the one who wants to go after the.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do it. He keeps trying to get out of it.
Exactly. Like that would not happen in a modern like blockbuster. Like it might now, but like it wouldn't have 10 years ago.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens when The Rock and Emily Blunt remake this movie as Jungle Cruise for Disney.
I mean, it's definitely what that looks like. I think The Rock in his little like African Queen hat looks absurd.
To compare Dwayne Johnson to Humphrey Bogart is absurd.
Emily Blunt is a closer analog, to be fair. She's great, but she's not Katharine Hepburn, but she's very good.
I have a hard time with Dwayne because he doesn't seem interested in doing anything other than generic AF studio product.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I like that director. He made like a lot of like surprisingly decent Liam Neeson thrillers, like Nonstop. And have you seen Nonstop, the plane
No,
one?
I haven't.
That one is good. I swear that one's good. Anyway, so anyway, that I guess we should probably wrap that up. We're over a half hour here, but I do recommend the movie. Next week we're covering Adventures in Wild Space. We're starting that series.
Which our tentative schedule is destroyed at this point because we discovered Adventures in Wild Space is not... Hang on. Star Wars. Star Wars.
Yeah.
Adventures in Wild Space is 7 books, folks. It is not 6 books.
There's an unnumbered book that is...
An unnumbered first book, the Prelude book, Adventures in Wild Space, The Escape. So that is the book that we will be reviewing next week because, we didn't know this book existed. So this is the start. Yeah, The Escape is the first one. So.
And the film we'll be discussing next week, the non-Star Wars film, is the third Planet of the Apes film, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, which longtime listeners know I'm a huge Apes fan, one of my favorite. Again, I've said sometimes I like it more than Star Wars, and we're going to have a nice long conversation about it. Both of us, I think it's one of our favorites of the series.
This is like a movie. I saw this for the first time, and I was just like, this is 5 stars.
Yeah, it's
I used to, when I was a kid, and I too am obsessed with Planet of the Apes. My father showed it to me on TV, and he didn't tell me anything about it. I didn't know the twist. It was a great experience. But anyway, I used to not like Escape because I'd watch it and I'm like, well, this just throws the entire continuity of the first 2 movies out the window. I mean, now I don't really care, but
it's a fantastic
great
movie, and we'll have an in-depth discussion next week.
I love about we will talk about this in depth, but I want to say this while you're here. What I love about it is how it creates this. In the whole story, it creates this closed loop timeline.
Yes. It's amazing.
It's great. Yeah,
there's like nothing. That is like the only movie franchise that has like a closed loop like that, and that is so incredible.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it was just a little too advanced for me at 10 years old.
It's so good. So we're gonna talk a lot about it. I have tons of research material. I'll be playing the Levi role next week with all the behind the scenes tidbits. So I'm really excited, but we are now 36 minutes into this episode, so we need to get moving because usually these Jedi Prince conversations go long. So let's take a break.
So much to talk about.
When we come back, we'll be discussing Queen of the Empire. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May. Here, as always, with
Grand Moff Levi Peretic.
Love that dead air. And we are here, as always, for the Jedi Prince books. Our most frequent guest, my brother, Daniel May.
Supreme Prophet.
Yes. Daniel May. Of course. So this is the
dark greetings, everybody. Again, Doug Hansen will be taking the
not Doug Hansen, not Doug Hansen.
Douglas. This character, Douglas Hansen, that you're talking about.
It's Dunhausen, I believe. Right?
It's Dunhausen.
Look at those blaster earrings jangle in anger as I mispronounce his name every time.
There's no picture of him in the.
No, he's not in the cover this time. That stupid Tybor character is in there.
Yeah,
and he is like not important at all.
No.
Tybor is worthless.
Couple things. This is, of course, the 5th book in the Jedi Prince series. And we've been covering this the entire run of the show. This goes back almost 2 years now. These are getting pretty tiresome, is what I'll say. But I did want to point out before we get into the meat of the book that at the beginning of the book there's a dedication in memory of George Pal, Jedi Master of Film Fantasy, whose inspiration shines as brightly as the brilliant twin suns of Tatooine. I will say, Paul Davids and Hollis Davids, thank you for shouting out George Pal, a legend. Of course, he made the War of the Worlds movie and the Time Machine movie, which the Time Machine movie is one of me and Dan's favorite movies of all time, the 61 Time Machine. Mm-hmm. So, which I guess we could have done. I didn't know that. It tied into this book. So, I'm happy to do African Queen. But just, heads up, that movie's fantastic. So, and George Pal is a legend. So, but, there's nothing about these. I assume he had just died or something when this book was published.
It must have.
But because this book, it's not like it feels like George Pal movie or anything.
Hollis Davids, I read in her bio in the back here, she works for some studio, Universal.
She works for Universal. She did Oscar campaigns for Schindler's List or something.
Yeah, so she has a real job besides writing this hack work.
Oh yeah, but I mean, George.
And Professor Hack Hard Drive famously worked on Transformers. So
a little less prestigious.
And I want to say too, this book, in my opinion, didn't get interesting until the Empire shows up. I thought the Empire stuff was so goofy that it kind of worked. But they have a Saturday morning cartoon vibe to them.
Oh yeah, they're the Legion of Doom, or
all these books definitely they read the script for an episode of Transformers or
G.I. Joe.
Yeah, G.I. Joe.
Police Academy, the cartoon series, or
the Legend of Zelda cartoon. Yeah.
Police Academy cartoon.
Yeah, that was a real thing. And so was Dumb and Dumber, The Mask.
They did it forever. The entire from 1985 to 1998, every movie was turned into a cartoon.
Right, that's why we have Clerks, the animated series.
Well, that's good, though. That is so good. That's a masterpiece, actually.
But
under that,
Back to the Future, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I remember watching all these when I was a kid. I'm sure they were terrible.
If you were a raunchy, R-rated comedy, you most likely got a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, but the Clerks cartoon was a primetime cartoon.
Yeah,
it was on ABC.
Yeah, but it was on, it was an attempt at, doing, a Simpsons thing, not, it wasn't a Saturday morning thing.
Right.
Although, ABC, bad fit. There's so many good jokes in that. Anyway, I don't want to...
We'll completely derail the episode.
Alright, so this... I haven't thought of that in a long time. Okay, Dan has a bunch of notes, so I figure Dan can lead the conversation this week if he's up for it.
I mean, sure, whatever. So each of these books starts with a recap, and it's they've trimmed it down a little bit. In the first several books, every recap would include an entire 3-paragraph recap of the entire original trilogy, as if anyone picking up these books hasn't seen those fucking movies. But they've kind of eased up on that. But I noted here that the recap contains tense shifts, they shift from present to past tense at random. So great job there. And then even though they're not recapping the entirety of the trilogy, there is nobody who's reading the 5th book of Jedi Prince, even if they're a little kid, who needs to be reintroduced to Han, Leia, Lando, and Luke Skywalker. There's not a single
Chewbacca,
one. Yep.
C-3PO,
Chewbacca,
R2-D2.
Now they may need reminded of the university on Dagobah at Mount Yoda.
They might,
but they do need reminded of who Yoda was. So
I noted also in the recap that Trioculus, you might remember the false son of Palpatine, Trioculus is said to have, quote, falsely claimed to be Palpatine's son. I thought that was very, very prescient on the part of these books to talk about a powerful, corrupt politician making false claims. Only the real shit in the Jedi Prince books.
First, it's Professor Hack Hard Drive. He saw the future.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, these books have had very similarities to the sequel trilogy. The fact that she fuzz is well, he doesn't quite do that. How they've explained that in the sequel trilogy, it's a clone, which then doesn't make Rey his granddaughter, but actually his biological daughter.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
and Tim, you're about to say, why are we talking about this? Because I'm going to continue to push the idea that these books are in the same continuity as the sequel trilogy.
Oh, this is very impressive.
Rey's father is in these books. Rey's
He
father,
certainly is.
Triclops.
And he wants peace.
Yeah.
He doesn't want destruction. It's exactly.
Yeah. In case you don't remember, in the last book, we discovered that Palpatine's true son, not Trioculus, but Triclops, that's his name, Triclops, who has an eye not in his forehead, but in the back of his head. Very important distinction. And he could shoot, like, rays out of it or something, some shit like that.
Force rays, yeah.
Yeah.
He shot, and you're saying he shot a different kind of ray out of a different part of his body.
Yes!
Well, this is how Luke and Leia knew, because when Rey shows up, they're playing coy. They're just like, yeah, we don't know you, but they knew her the entire time because they know Triclops fuzz and she shoots Rey out, so they know she existed. Like,
yeah, exactly. These are and look, we had an early prototype Palpatine clone mentioned in one of the previous books, Snoke Larone.
Snoke Larone.
He wound up becoming a rebel pilot, but he was an attempt at cloning Emperor Palpatine. At least I assume that's what Snoke is supposed to have been, like a failed attempt at a clone. I don't fucking know. I don't understand that movie.
My thinking is, like, she was just like, yeah, I would just make a person who will do my bidding and make him real screwed up looking and really tall.
Hey,
That's like,
Levi.
Give him a gold bathrobe.
Remember when we knew that, when we found out that Sheev was in the movie and you were like, I'm all about it, I'm all for it? Remember that?
I do remember that. I was like, well, how can they screw this up?
Just thought how could they possibly screw up the dumbest idea?
You know how they screwed it up? Because Ben Solo and Rey Skywalker did not have a lightsaber duel with Sheev Palpatine. That would have been incredible.
That's the problem with that movie, right? That's the main number one problem.
It is a huge...
Luke and Leia have a lightsaber battle with Sheev Palpatine in the source material for that movie, Dark Empire.
Oh my God! Now we're just. Okay, let's not.
And this book series has Ken, the Jedi Prince. Sounds a whole like Ben, another Jedi Prince I know. Yeah. So
I think we're still gonna find out. I'm pretty sure we're still gonna find out. That Ken is Triclops' kid, and therefore Rey's brother, of course. Yeah.
See, I was thinking at the end of this, Leia and Han would adopt Ken.
Oh yeah.
And he'd become Ken Solo. So that
Ken Solo.
Ken Solo.
All right, let's get back to the text.
The book. Yeah.
Okay, so we open up at Drapak.
There are more acronyms in these books than in the FDR administration.
There were less in this book, but if you don't remember what DRAPAC stands for, I will refresh
Drought
you.
Relief for...
It's in the glossary. Hold on.
Defense Research and Planetary Assistance Center.
Oh my God. They're at Drapak and Spin is beaten there. They're talking about the new Archers of Loaf album. and
then...
I think you used Archers of Loaf the last time you made that joke.
Damn
it! And then they pull out... Leia walks in the room. But wait, Leia's already in the room. But wait, Leia's... But turns out they built a droid replica decoy of Leia. And they're like, oh yeah, she can even shoot lasers out of her eyes. Here, watch this. boom, she shoots one of the scientists in the chest and destroys one of his 2 hearts, and he has to have an immediate heart transplant. This is how the book starts
like
off.
this robot is bad news. She was just pissed off because she didn't like that scientist's review of the new Afghan Wigs album.
Okay, and then Baji, remember Baji? The character that
I
they
had
told
no clue who this was. I was like, what is this?
But Baji, he comes in, he's like, this guy needs a heart transplant, but he says this rhyme. Fandar's right heart pumps on, but his left one is nearly gone. Transplant another heart with no delays, or death shall come in just 3 days.
Bars.
Pure hack hard drive bars.
Why the fuck are there so many poets just running around in this fucking series?
Because Drapac is like, it's an institution at Mount Yoda, you know. We bring our scientific minds, our artistic minds, our mathematical minds. This is where they all have to be.
It's
so.
like Berkeley in '68, man.
It's Dagobah Tech, my dude. Come on. So anyway, they go to Fandar. Fandar's not his home planet. Chadorfan or something like that.
Chad. The planet is Chad.
Which is like another tie-in to our movie, because we're on the same continent as the Congo. We're in the nation of Chad.
Yeah. I thought it was weird, like a planet named after an actual country.
Yeah, I mean that's not on this book. The Chadrofan are a species that already exists in Star Wars, and the planet Chad is that's other canonical stuff. Although I agree, it's silly.
But when they get there, Han and Leia go. They take 3PO and R2. When they get there, though, there's a hurricane going on. And you know why this hurricane's going on? Because Chad is the galaxy's dairy producer. So there are dairy-producing creatures there that are farting up a storm. The methane gas has gotten too high, which is causing a greenhouse effect, which is causing all these weather changes.
I gotta give it to them, actually, because
they do this every book. Yeah, we have some sort of environmental crisis addressed in this book.
That's like real shit.
That's the best part of these books. I wish that the stories were more effective and communicated these messages more effectively. But
that's like in case you didn't know, like that's true. Like the volume of dairy cows that exist. It's actually more. I looked it up because I was a little curious about it. I knew vaguely, but like I looked it up and it's more their belches than their farts actually. There's actually some debate amongst climate scientists as to the extent to which it contributes to global warming. Most of the figures I could find average about 14% of global emissions come from cows.
That is fucking wild. So
that is wild, and it's all driven by factory farming and mostly fast food. So your Big Mac's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So. But that's the inconvenient truth for everybody listening. So
wow, 15th anniversary of that movie.
All right, who wants to keep going with this story?
Tim.
So
all right, what is happening? They're on Chad, and then Luke and Ken stay behind and do nothing for most of the book.
Someone gets buried under a bunch of rubble, right?
Yeah, because
Han
of the
and
hurricane.
R2.
Han.
They get buried, and Leia is, and they wind up getting him out. It's not like it winds up being a
It's a complete dead end. It's like. I don't. Did you guys read Choose Your Own Adventure books when you were a kid?
I read one.
Okay, well, I was obsessed with them, and this is like if there's anybody in the audience that has read any of those, it's like that you make a choice and it leads you down a path. It's not like the bad ending, but it's like a complete just filler non-adventure that dead ends at some lame ending, and you go back to the beginning and try to find the good one. It's like
right,
that.
like Han walked down the corridor, the hurricane raged, the building collapsed on him. The end.
Yeah.
Like,
it's purely let's fill out this page count a little bit.
So,
well, Leia saves them, and
then,
I have wanted to read a little.
this
bit.
is the important part here. Yeah.
So this is after he saved. This is page 17. Okay. Well, you know, Leia, I thought I had seen you for the last time, and well, he searched for the right words. Well, what? She asked. That would have been a shame, Han admitted. I'll agree with that. A big shame. All my plans for us were almost crushed by those rocks. Leia's eyebrows raised questioningly. What plans for us, Han? So that's,
Right, so...
Now, if you don't remember, Han wants to marry Leia. He's asked for Luke's permission already. That happened in an early book.
Because that's definitely something he needs to do.
And that's why he built his dream sky house over Bespin, because he wants to have some little kids running around that
If
place.
I'm ever going to have kids with a solo name, I figured that you better be their mother, or whatever the fuck he says.
Yeah. Isn't there a mention of the fucking Sky House again in that chapter?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think... Well, he shows up again later, so, okay. Oh, we should read this together. Start on page 23, it's at the bottom. And I think, it's just Leia, and so, start at, once they were all seated. Who wants to be who?
I'll be Han, you be Leia.
Alright.
You can start, because Leia...
Okay, once they were all seated inside the navigation room of the spaceship and prepared to take off, co-pilot Princess Leia said, Next stop, Dagobah.
Wrong, Han said. Next stop, Hologram Fun World.
Thrilling images of the space station in the... I screwed that up. Thrilling images of the most spectacular space station in the galaxy filled Leia's mind. A fun park where hologram experiences seemed to make every wish come true. We can't go to Hologram Fun World, Han, Leia protested. We've got work to do for Spin back at Mount Yoda. We don't have time to waste.
Who said we were going to waste time? Han said, and then just like that, he blurted out, We're going to elope.
Leia was speechless. Did I skip a part?
He said, it's what?
Oh. What? Leia stammered.
Well, it's just that,
Are you asking me to marry you, Han? Leia asked.
I guess you could look at it that way if you want, Han replied. I mean, that's what it usually means to elope, doesn't it? To fly off somewhere in a hurry and get,
Leia was speechless. Han gave a deep sigh and continued.
Don't act as if this comes as a big shock, okay? I told you when you saved my life that all my plans for us were almost crushed by those rocks. That just started me thinking, I guess.
Thinking about me? Leia asked.
Thinking about the fact that I'm not getting any younger, and that if I ever want to have any pipsqueak solo kids running around my sky house tugging at my boots, well, it just wouldn't seem right unless you were their mother. Han gazed into her eyes. Does that make any sense?
Perfect sense, she answered. Oh, you go ahead. As
Han took Princess Leia in his arms to kiss her, 3PO glanced away in the opposite direction.
Goodness gracious me, the droid exclaimed. Why do you humans get so sentimental? It simply boggles my mind circuit.
This is ridiculous. I'm sorry, guys. Like
this photo here, I love this photo
I know.
of 3PO covering his eyes but still peeking out.
He's just like, I want to get a.
Since
no
when?
Peeking.
Since when does C-3PO have some kind of problem with public displays of affection?
Well, he watched Anakin and Padme together and was just he knows how that turned out. Well, I guess he doesn't.
No,
know
not
how
anymore.
But
but there's no precedent in any of the movies for.
He's been around Han and Leia kissing before. It's not...
Yeah, it's just it's just a very classic example of these books always just wanting to kind of have the semblance of the dialogue rhythms from the movies without actually having the content of that dialogue make any sense for the characters.
So let's talk about this proposal. It is absurd. Han is behaving insanely. Like, he's like so nervous. I just don't buy that. I know, like, maybe they're kind of going off the moment in New Hope, which I guess we talked about just recently, this last week. With what do you think? A princess and a guy like me? But it's been 5 years.
Well, there's also the end of Return of the Jedi when
that's true.
When
That's
he's
true.
like, saying when he thinks that like Leia's like in love with Luke.
Classic moment.
Yeah, great moment. But so
I won't get in your way.
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit.
But he wouldn't stammer. He would just like put up that wall.
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah, he would be confident about it.
And there's
like
parts
he would
of
feel
it that-
defeated, but
There's parts
he
of it
wouldn't
that
have
feel
just,
like
like-
that. But
yeah, but not this. This is anyway.
Yeah. Oh, we missed in that chapter that Rey's father Triclops has dreams about like war machines and weapons.
because Luke and Ken have stayed behind to like look after Triclops.
And
So is Chewbacca.
And Chewbacca.
Chewbacca
Right.
has too.
Of course,
And
that's very
Chewbacca
important that Chewbacca has stayed behind.
And Chewbacca stays there. Chewbacca never leaves there.
Yeah, what? But like we find out that basically the reason that they didn't kill Triclops, the Empire, didn't kill him is because when he sleeps, he dreams up plans for like death weapons and shit like that, and they kind of take notes on it and build them, which is of course later on where Starkiller Base comes from.
Exactly. It's Sheev subconsciously invading his dreams, just like he did to Ben Solo. He's invading this boy's dreams and sending him messages. So, anyway, they get to Hologram Fun World, which they get out, they see some dazzling lights.
They're obsessed
thrilling,
with Hologram Fun World.
Thrilling music boomed from 1138 THX ultra sound speakers. Wanted to point that out, which is,
Gotta give us shouts, I guess.
And then they get there and they see a sign and they go, "Hey, look, Lando Calrissian's Chief Baron Administrator of Hologram
I
Fun
love that
World."
this theme park has a Chief Baron Administrator.
Not only does it have it has a whole government structure to it too, where they have records department because there's a whole thing with birth certificates.
I know, we'll get into that. We should point out that Zorba the Hutt is now aware that Leia survives and wants to get his revenge on Leia. So they're headed to Hologram. They figure out that she's going to Hologram Fun World.
No, he has other motivations than for that to go into Hologram Fun World, because his tax audit droids are telling him that, hey, tourism in Cloud City's dropped, you got crime is rampant, the restaurants, the food's expiring because nobody's eating.
They're basically Lando took over Hologram Fun World because he saw that people are going to never want to gamble again because they're going to realize that the responsible thing to do is to spend it on guaranteed fun at Hologram Fun World. The urge to gamble money will completely disappear.
But Zorba, I guess, was having trouble because of failing casinos, which makes
that's what I'm saying. Because he took over Cloud City because he won it in a game of Static. And
then he gets a bunch of people together, and then they storm another building.
I was thinking the same thing.
Building.
Yeah, very interesting. They're headed to Hologram Fun World, and good lord, but then he also realizes on his way there that Leia's there and that he wants to get revenge on Leia. So Han and Leia are going to get married at Hologram Fun World. This does not, by the way, seem like Han at all, that he would want to get married. He would not be like, let's have a Disney wedding, motherfucker. Like,
right?
Like, come on. Like, neither would Leia, by the way. Like,
No,
she's
definitely.
like, I always dreamed of having a big dress with a
wants
train.
to have a big wedding. She, like, I want Luke to give me away.
Yeah, it's
you
like,
know, like, Ken
so
can
weird.
be your ring bearer. Chewbacca's
Ken.
your best
Ken,
man.
this kid they just fucking met. And, like...
Which is...
And like, and by the way, like she wants a big dress with a train, and like what about Leia indicates this at all? Like, I
agreed.
Like, what about her fashion sense at all? In any of the movies outside of the ceremony at the end of New Hope, she's never dressed up really at all.
I guess in Return of the Jedi when they're in the Ewok village.
I mean, it's a nice dress, but it's not like a wedding.
Yeah, no, I hear
It's
you.
like a casual. It's like a casual summer
She's not
dress.
pulling out Padme. She's not pulling articles out of Padme's closet. You know.
Yeah, no, because she had to live. She had a harder life than Padme.
However, remember that moment in Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray where she puts on that, the Queen of Naboo gives her an outfit to put on,
Incredible
and then
stuff.
Grand Moff
Hissa Dunhausen?
No. It was Tycho.
Yes. And he's just like, oh, huh? Like,
What
and he
is
recognizes
this? Yeah.
immediately.
Oh no,
like,
it wasn't
he
Tycho.
looks
It
like-
wasn't. No, it was. It was Panaka.
what's his Panaka?
Yeah, Panaka.
Yeah, that's the name.
He's
Grand Moff Panaka.
He's just. I think
Or
he's
Moff
just a
Panaka.
governor. An
Okay.
imperial
Well, either
governor.
way.
But yeah, regardless.
Either way, so
Good
they
book.
get in touch with Lando, and Lando, he gives them the big tour of the place. If you remember in Galaxy of Fear, I don't remember the name of which one it is. I think it's book 4.
Yeah.
The Arandas go to Hologram Fun World where they run into Lando Calrissian, who's looking for some investment opportunities. So apparently this all paid off somehow. But anyway, we're going to go to page 40. This is when the wedding is about to begin. Lando, he gets them the bouquet, he gets them the dress, he gets Han the tux. They are dressed and ready to walk down the aisle.
This is insane. I just want to prep people for this.
All right, so I want to read. I guess I'll read Lando.
Okay.
And then you guys can read the other parts. So
Where are we starting?
well, I guess the only it's like the second paragraph on page 40.
All right.
Well, I guess the only thing left to do now is to take you to the 13th story to the administration building, Lando said, so the Fun World document droids can check over your papers.
What papers? Han asked.
Oh, your ID, of course, Lando explained.
ID? What ID? Han queried, sounding bewildered.
You two have got your birth certificates with you, don't you?
Han gulped. Are you kidding me? Mine's at my sky house back on Bespin.
And my birth certificate was destroyed when the Empire blew up Alderaan, Leia explained. Do you mean to tell me that we can't elope here unless we have our birth certificates with us?
Now. Don't jump to any conclusions, Princess, Lando said reassuringly. There's got to be an easy way around this problem. I'll see if the document bureau can print up some new birth certificates right away. Simple as Zoochberry pie. Ooh, except... Lando glanced at his watch and frowned and rubbed his chin. Uh-oh, the document bureau is already closed. We'll have to get you duplicate birth certificates tomorrow, first thing in the morning.
But Leia and I were planning on getting married tonight, Han protested.
Sorry, good buddy, Lando said. Bureaucracy. Normally I could pull some strings and solve the little problem like this in a flash, but it's Fun World Founders Day. Government offices shut their doors early today. Everyone's gone home. Noticing Leia's expression of disappointment, Lando added, but don't despair. You two will get hitched by noon tomorrow. I guarantee it. In the meantime, I have some big plans for you two tonight. Big plans, he repeated, winking with a mischievous smile.
Oh my god.
So much wasted ink.
This is absolute nonsense. Okay, first of all, like, they could still have had, like, the ceremony that night and then just gotten the license the next morning. This is just, this is what would happen on Earth in a normal, and secondly, so it's apparently super easy to get a duplicate birth certificate. It's like, we can get it before noon tomorrow, is what he's saying. And Leia, Alderaan blew up many years ago, and apparently the bureaucracy of the fucking galaxy really, like, matters, apparently, in this world. So, and apparently on any planet she could get a duplicate birth certificate from Alderaan, a blown up planet, like, no problem. And she is, by the way, the leader of the rebellion. Like, I'm sure.
What is it? 2012? Like, the leader of the rebellion needs to be asked about her birth certificate.
It's a long form birth certificate. It's absurd, and like, it's just nonsense. It's just like they clearly had. What's crazy about this book and these books in general is that they are filled with meaningless incident.
Yes.
And like, to fill out the most paper thin plot possible.
And there's another moment before the wedding almost happens that has no emotional resonance whatsoever. And this is crazy that this has no emotion to it at all. To top off their visit, Leia made one of her fondest dreams come true. She took Han on a hologram fantasy voyage of Alderaan, her home planet, so Han could experience what it was like before it was destroyed by Darth Vader and the Galactic Empire. They wandered arm in arm on a romantic walk down the picturesque side streets of Alderaan's largest city. Leia's mind activated Fun World's holographic projections so that Han could see the world, see a world that now only existed in Leia's memories. So, like,
it's just such an attempt. That's like a. First of all, fuck this shit. This isn't Star Trek TNG. I don't need fucking holodeck bullshit.
Yeah, like tangible holograms. That's not a thing in Star Wars.
But theoretically an emotionally compelling idea, but yeah,
it's not explored. These books are written with all the creativity and flair of an AP Wire article. It's just it's so just bland, direct, to the point that it just zooms by everything. You never really get a sense of any kind of emotional resonance at all.
Well, to try to tie this into continuity of the Legends continuity, this technology that she's speaking of, where it's coming from her mind, a tangible hologram from her mind, could be nightmare machine technology, Tim.
That's true.
That's the name of that fourth book of A Galaxy of Fear, the Nightmare Machine. So, okay. Anyway, they go to a magic show.
Oh, right. God.
There's
a great illustration in this section where, so during the magic show, the magician is a Bith.
Named Bithabus.
Yeah, named Bithabus. And he's one of Zorba's agents. And so he points out Leia in the crowd and asks her to volunteer. Where is this? What page is this?
Oh,
here it is. Yeah, and so she reluctantly agrees and goes up, and he's like, I'm just gonna shrink her down to a little pea size or some nonsense. And this illustration, you have to definitely post this on the Instagram.
Oh yeah,
this is one of my favorite illustrations. It's just she's like, Han, should I get into this giant cage for this suspicious seeming magician? And he's just hanging over the balcony sure, why not? It reminds me of the scene from the last season of The Crown, where Princess Diana performs dances to Uptown Girl at an event, and Prince Charles is just very upset.
The cage. I want to remind everyone is made of gold in this scene, and I think that's like really incisive commentary. You know, just like all of us, you know, are so often living inside of gilded cages. You know, really deep shit from this book.
So Zorba, he takes Leia, he runs off with Leia, he puts her on her ship, the Zorba Express, and when she gets in there, she finds out she's in the cargo hold with Trioculus frozen in carbonite. Whoa, wait a minute. I thought Trioculus was vaporized by Supreme Prophet Caden in the last book. Zorba, he's like, you think I would hang my most prized Earth possession in a public museum on Cloud City? Nice try. It was a forgery that I had that Caden zapped. So this is the real Trioculus.
Yeah.
But then he's got plans. He's going to throw Leia in the Sarlacc pit. So he hightails it back to Tatooine. Meanwhile, hovering above Tatooine, the Grand Moffs in their Moff ship are holding a Mofference.
Mofference.
Yes.
They're on and it's too bad they couldn't. Some of the Grand Moffs couldn't show up, but they were able to communicate via Mofference call. And
I wish I could remember. I might have noted it somewhere in my notes, maybe not. But like they really hammer this joke. Like they say the Grand Moffs were having a conference or a Mofference. Like they really fucking want to put a real fine point on it. It's so fucking bad.
I love it.
At one point, by the way, after getting captured, Leia tries to escape, and or no, she doesn't try to escape. Zorba starts excoriating her for having killed Jabba, and she says, "It was the chain that held me prisoner. I was only trying to get free. That's every prisoner's right." It's just a weird phrase.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
like
so much weird shit.
I mean, she yeah, sure. I suppose like she had a right to try to free herself because she was being unjustly held captive.
It's a human right, but I'm not sure it's a prisoner's right.
Yeah, every prisoner has the right to try to escape.
like it's just a very whatever.
Sorry. Weird aside.
No,
Well, this is why we are having prison reform right now in our country, because there are private prisons where prisoners don't have that right
to escape.
So,
That's the issue.
The public prisons, they're like, of course you have the right to attempt escape. We won't stop you. That's your right.
It's just our constant Hogan's Heroes episode all the time.
Oh, yes.
I know nothing.
Oh.
Okay, so the Moff ship sees the Zorba Express coming. They catch it in a tractor beam. So then they hoist Zorba up by his wrist. They got him hanging there. They thaw Trioculus, and Trioculus, he is as happy as a clam, they would say.
The Moffs are so happy because they're like, I don't know, Caden will be so happy that you're alive, and like, yeah, no, what's the...
Oh, I'm just looking at the illustration of Zorba hoisted up and chained.
Which we should mention too, Grand Moff Hissa is alive. You thought maybe he died in the last book when he fell into toxic waste and was dissolving away. Nope. He lost his legs, he lost his arms. He's in a little hovercraft with robot arms.
Yeah, like a Professor X kind of hover chair type.
And he's
situation.
bald too. Yeah. He looks a lot like Professor X, except with pointy teeth.
And a goatee.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I mean, this isn't normally my style of joke, but I can't escape the notion that in this illustration, Zorba doesn't exactly look displeased.
Oh no,
to be chained up like that.
So excited.
I mean, this is a fairly common thing, I understand, for men in powerful positions.
Oh yeah,
like Paul Giamatti's character on the television program Billions.
Oh yeah, of course. Iconic. Chuck Rhodes. He's the most Chuck Rhodes. Zorba is so much like Chuck Rhodes. Like, oh my god, he is like. Oh, well, I don't want to get into it because Levi hasn't seen the show.
No. And even when he's being thrown into the spoiler alert, they throw Zorba into the Sarlacc. He doesn't look like he's unhappy there either. Like, he looks like he's having like a good time, like free falling.
I think it's
like, oh.
I think it's more of an issue of just like, oh well, we're just gonna draw this same expression on this character,
which is this classic Jabba expression. I always want to call him Jabba because he looks exactly like
Jabba with a fucking like Norwegian metal band beard.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. Like on the cover of the last book, like Struzan just painted a beard on Jabba. That's all it is.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he did. Well, Trioculus, he's got Leia, he's got Zorba. He's got his Moff buddies back.
Remember, Trioculus wants to marry Leia.
Yes.
And make her the queen of the Empire.
As they remind us many times.
On page 71, Trioculus turned to Grand Moff Hissa. "Make preparations for my wedding, Hissa," he ordered. "Find the dark book of Imperial Justice, and I will show you the passage that you're to read at the ceremony. We'll hold the wedding here on the Moff ship, just as soon as we've sent Zorba the Hutt to his doom.
That's his voice?
He will be swallowed by the mouth of the Sarlacc as planned." So yes, they have to find the dark book of Imperial Justice. Kind of like finding a Sith Wayfinder.
Oh God.
So anyway,
equally meaningless MacGuffin.
Then Trioculus, he says later on, he says, "This day has brought me 3 victories, Princess. First, I was freed from the Carbonite. Then Zorba paid for the injustice he did to me and to you. And lastly, I have taught you to be grateful to me." So this is, of course, where he's going to force a wedding onto Leia. And then,
so, meanwhile, while all this is happening, Han and Lando return to the Millennium Falcon back at Hologram Fun World, and Lando makes a crack about how, like, "Oh, you changed a few things around since you won the ship from me," and I'm like, "You piloted the Millennium Falcon in the Battle of Endor, like you know that whatever was changed around, you're familiar with the changes already." Anyway.
He also piloted it in the assault on what is the name of that Sith planet in Rise of Skywalker?
Well, that was later.
Yeah, that's later in this same timeline.
But another time, Lando piloted the Falcon, so you know.
It was a weird thing. But anyway, Luke and
Ken
and the life model decoy robot of Leia are there because they realized, like, Mon Mothma apparently saw that Zorba's ship was gonna be at Hologram Fun World 2, and was like, "Hey Luke, why don't you go head over there?" So they go off to they figure out that they're going to Tatooine, so they wind up following them also,
So anyway, they have a plot to switch out Leia with the replica droid, which they do successfully.
And
they
so
sneak onto the
Trioculus
Moff ship.
is going to marry the replica droid, and she wants him just like firing her laser eyes at who was it again?
She fires them at Trioculus. But he gets it right in the chest. But I do want to read a bit here, because before the wedding begins, we have conversation between some of the Moffs over this wedding.
Oh, yeah.
And this is like kind of, they're actually pondering some real important things here that are really kind of funny. So on page 81, we're going to start about halfway down. One by one, the other Grand Moffs filled the security observation bridge to witness the ceremony. I hope Trioculus isn't making a mistake, Grand Moff Musser whispered to Grand Moff Thistleborn. It's a bit too soon to know whether Leia has embraced the dark side.
He knows exactly what he's doing, Thistleborn replied with a nod. Consider how loyal Darth Vader was to Emperor Palpatine and the dark side. We must never forget that the princess is Vader's daughter, his flesh and his blood.
But, yes, so is Luke Skywalker, Grand Moff Musser replied softly, and a little more nettlesome troublemaker than Skywalker will... A more nettlesome troublemaker than Skywalker will never find.
Oh my god.
Grand Moff Hissa opened the dark book of Imperial Justice and began reading aloud. We are gathered here to witness a momentous event, he began. The marriage of our Imperial ruler to Princess Leia Organa. who now, of her own free will renounce the Rebel Alliance and offer her eternal allegiance to the dark side. Thus, Leia will prepare herself to follow the path of her father, Darth Vader, and at last will become queen of the Empire.
Craziness.
So the wedding goes off without a hitch. That's, of course, until Trioculus realizes that she is not Leia, and she fires her eye laser straight into his chest, which they say he begins bleeding profusely, pulsating blood profusely.
Yeah. pretty intense. And
did these books have editors?
No.
Like,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
There's no way. Absolutely not. There is no way.
It's the most, yeah, whatever.
Don't you think that's fairly... that's fairly good plotting, right? Like Anton Chekhov says, if you have a human replica droid with laser eyes at the beginning of the play, by the end, it's got to go up.
Okay, so they escape. We don't know what happens to Trioculus. They say they fight to save his life. There's even some mention that Hissa gets also blasted by the robot. The robot does die, though, and but our heroes escape.
And they're heading back to Spin, and and Han is and Leia's like, it'll be nice to have a real wedding, and Han's like, yeah, I guess so, and if we don't get married today, I can give Mon Mothma a piece of my mind about voting for fucking Teenage Fan Club Bandwagon-esque over Nirvana's Nevermind for Best Album in 91. Sorry.
And then from there, we go back to the Great Pit of Carkoon, where Zorba the Hutt is spit out by the Sarlacc, and he's just like, oh, didn't like the way I tasted? I didn't like the way you tasted either. Oh. And then, hang on. This is exciting because we get a preview.
I didn't read the preview.
I didn't read it, but I did read the top part of it. Find out what happens when Zorba the Hutt joins forces with Kaden, the supreme prophet of the dark side. So that's what's going to happen in the next book. Zorba and Kaden together.
Now you know you're in trouble.
Leia is so in trouble, so, but this book, guys.
Oh, terrible.
Oh my god. So.
In the bios, it mentions that Professor Hack Hard Drive directed some movie called Roswell, with Kyle MacLachlan and Martin Sheen. Do you guys know about this?
I think we talked about this.
Yes, I've actually seen it.
We?
I don't
Okay.
think I don't think he directed it though.
He
I thought he
wrote
was
it.
only like a producer.
Oh, okay,
on it.
okay.
I think you might have been a screenwriter. But...
The movie though is actually interesting because it is a very factual depiction of the events of the Roswell incident.
So it's like a historical...
Yes.
Oh,
They do
okay.
throw an end on it. They do throw an end, like an explanation as to what happened to it, like what really happened at the end of it. But Kyle MacLachlan plays he's a member of the Army, and he's the guy who initially was brought to Roswell, and he saw the crash, and he said, it's a UFO, and then he's the guy who had to redact it 2 days later and say it was a weather balloon.
Oh,
so
okay.
he is, but it's not bad. But if you want to know more about the Roswell incident, that's a good movie for that.
Oh.
So
That's interesting. So...
hopefully on HBO Plus, because it was HBO Max. Sorry.
Was it an HBO movie?
Yeah, it does say it's an HBO.
Now,
Oh,
Max-
here's a recommendation.
in the bio.
Here's an HBO Max recommendation of an old HBO TV movie, Cast a Deadly Spell. Check that out. Good. It's from like
Okay.
1991. Very entertaining movie. We don't need to go into it.
My mother always, she's always like hyped this movie that she like always saw on HBO called The Homebodies, which is about a bunch of old guys robbing a bank that she thought was just hysterical that I've actually never been able to find. So, but
That's interesting.
anyway, but all right, Dan, final thoughts on Queen of the Empire.
These fucking books, they just keep getting worse all the time.
Only one left.
They become less. They've become less outrageous, and less wildly laughable, and that makes them worse because they've gotten a little bit like on an objective level in terms of just basic like plotting and competence better, but only by a small increment. So that really makes them worse because they're not as easy a target for laughter.
Yeah, but there was a lot of fodder here. The marriage stuff was ridiculous.
It's wild, yeah.
So what's your midichlorian rating, Dan?
Oh fuck. Like this is a. Can I do 1/2?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is like 1/2 midichlorian with a flavor of well, I think I used Ray's father Triclops last time, so we'll go flavor of Tibor, the giant lizard man who didn't even rate a mention from us during the entirety of our conversation.
But yet he made the cover of this
He
book,
did.
and this is so funny because Struzan just used the creature from the Black Lagoon.
He sure did. And if you look at his pose, compare that to a figure. In fact, compare this whole cover to the cover of another Star Wars novel, The Crystal Star, and you will see some striking similarities.
So, yeah, well, hopefully we can do a side-by-side on Instagram of that.
I'm going to work on that right now. But I think infamously, Dan, a 0.25 midichlorian count is actually reserved for Triclops.
Oh.
No, Trioculus.
Oh, yes.
I think that was like an early joke that we had going on
sure.
when we actually had characters assigned to certain numbers.
So this, I'm not going to go quite 0.5. I don't think it's the worst book we've ever read.
It's probably not. There are probably worse Jedi Princes. It's just so bad.
Yeah, but I'll go.
Oh my gosh, this cover! You're right. That like the Tibor is like exactly from this cover.
Yeah,
like,
well, yeah, I can't wait.
That dude in silhouette is like a kind of like quasi like Hitler Youth type dude. But we don't need to go into the plot of the Crystal Star right now.
So this, I'm going to go with a 1.5 midichlorians, and I thought it was, there was some funny stuff. I read it in like an hour before the show here, and it's not like, it's not good at all. It's terrible. I'm giving it 1.5, but it was not quite as much of a chore as I was anticipating. I'm going to give it the flavor of Triclops' seed,
So Ray?
Not the finished product, but
Oh, not
Halfway there.
needs an egg too.
Yeah. Well, that's the. Well, apparently his half is the good half because that's where she gets all her powers from. So,
God.
can't believe I said that. But anyway, all right. This book was a chore for me. I started this book on Monday night. And usually I'll read a couple chapters before I go to bed on any of these books. And I got through like the first chapter of this book and I was like, fuck this. So I was reading this chapter at a time, and after every chapter I felt exhausted. So I'm going to give this a 1-star, 1 midichlorian count, and I'm going to flavor it a Mofference flavoring. So I think that is the highlight of this book, in my opinion.
Mofference
all of
is a gift.
Mofference, meeting in the Mofference room. You know,
there's so many Mofference jokes we can make now. So I thank you to the Davids for that. Hey, so we're nearing the end of Jedi Prince.
We got one more, right?
We got one more, Prophets of the Dark Side. We'll be doing that very close to the end of the run of the show. And we have some special plans for that. We're not going to announce that right now. But Dan, though, I do want to have you back at some point. We're going to have to look over the schedule at some point and figure out a good spot for you to come on for like a one-off or like a book that's, just a different vibe, because, it's fun to get your Star Wars takes that are not like just like roasting the worst shit.
The worst shit. I've read enough Star Wars books where I feel I could be very confident in saying this is the worst shit.
It's the worst Star Wars thing I've ever experienced, and
Well, other than
and we've read Join the Resistance, so
Oh, would you? Oh, yeah. Actually, that's a good question. Would you guys say these are worse than Join the Resistance? Because I haven't read those.
I think I certainly enjoy doing these episodes more than the Join the Resistance episodes. And
I really enjoyed.
Well, I enjoyed those episodes. Actually, the episodes were fun, but these books are so much shorter, so they're easier to read. And they're the goofiness of them is a little more fun, because it's. And I think they're both trying to be silly. To be fair to the authors of both series, but this is not trying as hard to be hilarious. You know what I mean? And comedy that's stuff that's trying to be funny and is not funny is some of the most
here's the difference between those Join the Resistance guys whose names I do not recall.
Acker and Blacker.
Acker and Blacker, yeah. Well, here's what they're trying to force fart jokes on us.
Yeah.
Whereas, Paul and Hollis, the fart jokes just come naturally. It's part of the show,
it feels like it's certainly less well written than those books. Those books have a professional sheen that these books do not.
No, and a 300-page count too.
That's the other problem is that at least these books are I can knock them off in an hour if I really commit. Those things were all-day affairs. Having to get through them is maddening. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward. Dan, we'll figure out. Maybe we can get you on a couple episodes before.
Whenever.
But next week we are starting Adventures in Wild Space, which has a couple different authors, including one of the architects of the High Republic, I believe, Cavan Scott. Is one of the authors of this.
I thought he wrote all of them.
I think that there's a shared authorship. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, all right.
Maybe I'm wrong on that. But regardless, he's the writer, I believe, of the next one, which is The Escape. So check that out if you haven't read it. That's what we're going to be reviewing next week, and we're also going to be talking Escape from the Planet of the Apes. So if you haven't seen that, don't watch it unless you've seen the first two, but it's a great movie, so you should watch all three of them. All five.
All right, folks. Like us on all the social medias. Until the dark. Hang on. I know what I got. One last thing to say here. Let me find it here. Until the dark book of Imperial Justice is due back.
The Mofference is over.
Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2021. Tim May and Levi Paratic. All rights reserved.